Hello world, my name is Andy Silvers and today we're going to talk about whether or not you should consider getting a portable monitor. If you want to support the channel, obviously like and subscribe, that's super duper helpful. But if you want to support me more directly, please consider going to the links in the video description to check out my 3 books. I literally have books for all ages from ages 3 to 6, looking mostly at pictures, all the way to 8 to 12 with some chapters and bigger sentences to for teens and adults, in this case age 16 and up. You can find the links to those books in the description. All right, so monitors can be expensive, and oftentimes the stuff that you find in big box stores like Walmart, Best Buy, etc., just isn't particularly good. It's serviceable, but it may not serve your direct needs. So, what I decided to do was go to Amazon.com and purchase a portable monitor from a brand that I had never heard of. Now, purchasing devices, electronics devices like thumb drives, monitors, TVs, etc., from companies you've never heard of can be a bit of a risky endeavor. And in this video, I'm going to cover the 16-inch display from Newsoul. Now, I want to start off by saying that the exact unit I bought is currently not available on Amazon anymore, which is a bit odd. But the unit that I received cost me $179.99, and I'll talk a bit more about that later. And it is a 2K 16-inch 16 by 10 monitor. And it is a portable monitor, unlike a normal monitor, mainly because it's very slim and small, but also it doesn't come with any kind of a stand. So it's in the, I guess, the legacy of Apple, where you don't include anything. Of course, that's a joke. The reality is that this particular monitor is designed to be small and lightweight, and so you can carry it around with you. But I found that if the monitor doesn't include a stand, that on average the price is significantly less. I don't know why that is exactly, but I don't want to speculate in this video. Instead, I want to talk about this product and what it did for me, and if maybe this would be the right product, or that this kind of product could be right for you. So I recently purchased a Lenovo laptop, a Legion Slim 7i with 12th gen Intel processor. And my original plan was to buy kind of a funky monitor, something with like a 3:2 aspect ratio, 13 inches, and whatnot. And it was about the same price, if not less, as what I actually ended up getting. So you're going to see at the unboxing process now. This is me unboxing the monitor. I decided on this monitor because the specs almost identically match the Lenovo laptop. So it's 2560 by 1600 resolution. It's roughly 500 nit peak brightness. It says 10-bit color, but we'll get back to that. It has built-in speakers, which is pretty cool, and I noticed that when I first started using it. It has a Type-C. It actually has 2 Type-C ports and a full-size HDMI, which for me was a requirement in order to get it. And it has a headphone jack. So it is a pretty nice system. I think if you're a business professional, this can be nice because you can have your crummy 250 nit peak brightness work laptop to take with you on the go, but when you're in the office or at home, you can have a much nicer screen to look at. So this screen specs almost match my Lenovo Legion laptop, except for one key thing, if not two. The biggest thing is refresh rate. The monitor is only 60 Hz. If you find monitors, portable monitors with higher refresh rates than that, the price does tend to skyrocket a bit on average. But I wasn't really looking for high refresh rate because I'm not using it for gaming, even though the company Newsoul does advertise it as a quote-unquote gaming monitor. I largely disagree with this unless you're playing sightseeing games. But what I want to do in this video is get into the physical aspects of the monitor and how I use the monitor, and then you can decide whether or not something like this would be good for you. So the monitor that I purchased is roughly the same specs as my Lenovo's built-in display. It is a portable monitor, which means that it comes with a kickstand. Most of these portable monitors do. However, it does have 2 screw holes in the back, and that is for VESA mounting. You might think that normal VESA mounts have 4 screws, and that's true. The reason it only has 2 is because the monitor is so lightweight that it doesn't need all 4 screws in order to be held, securely in place. Now, a lot of these portable monitors have only a mini display, or they have either a mini display port or a micro HDMI. I really despise micro HDMI because it's not very secure or very rigid. So I made absolutely certain that this monitor had a full-size HDMI port, and indeed it does. On the, I guess, right side, it has full-size HDMI, 2 USB-C ports, and a USB Type-B port, which can be used for powering the monitor. And on the left, it has a headphone jack, and it has 3 buttons, which are the buttons you use to control the monitor's built-in menu system. So the first thing I want to note is the physical dimensions and usability of the monitor. To start, I want to say that it comes with an HDMI cable, it comes with a USB-C to C cable, and it comes with a USB-A to C cable. And it comes with it also an included power brick, a very small power brick, kind of like a phone charger. And this allows the monitor to receive power directly from the wall. However, there are 2 ways, primary ways you can use this monitor. You can use it with a single cable solution, just like they advertise, by plugging in a Type-C cable directly into your laptop using a DisplayPort compatible USB-C port. So if it's a Thunderbolt 3 or 4 port, it'll work fine. And that will send both power and display signal to the monitor. And then if you're okay with a more complicated setup, you can also power the monitor with any of, like, let's say the USB-A ports on your laptop, and then use the HDMI for the actual display signal. Both of these solutions work basically equally the same. So the monitor is a very good product. The peak brightness does appear to be equal, if not even slightly brighter than my Lenovo, which is pretty impressive. The resolution, as I said, is 2560 by 1600, which is more than enough for a device of this screen size. And it has a 60 Hz refresh rate. Now, there's a lot to say about the monitor's physical dimensions and usability, so I'm not even sure where to begin, but let's start with how I use it. So I like to have it set up on either side of my laptop screen. Usually it'll be on my left. And what I can do with it is I can use it to help me with certain software packages like DaVinci Resolve. So if I'm editing video, I can have the main DaVinci Resolve panels open on my laptop screen, and then I can have a web article or video footage open on the other screen. It is just an absolute dream come true to have a second display, particularly one of this quality, with me for when I'm on the go, or even when I'm at home and I have more space to have a larger desktop style setup. It's a really great product for that. I can't guarantee quality control for every single unit that is shipped. However, my unit had absolutely no obvious issues in terms of packaging and in terms of the product being damaged, or in terms of, say, the screen being messed up. I didn't see any dead pixels. Maybe there are some. It was a very nice display. It's also a matte display, which is worth noting and something that I appreciate. And you can tap on the display all day long and all night long, but it's not going to do anything because it is not a touchscreen. However, Newsoul does have a few touchscreen options. I just didn't want them as they tend to add to the price, and they also tend to be really glossy, which for my purposes was undesirable. So having a secondary monitor like this is extremely useful. And what you can also do with something like this is you can buy something like the Minis Forum, little mini micro desktops. So they have desktop PCs that are very, very small. Like we're talking like the size of maybe a tissue box or even smaller. And then if you bring that with this monitor, you can easily fit that all into a pretty small backpack. And you could carry all of that with you on the go. And then you have a full, but is effectively desktop solution that you can take to cafes, you can take anywhere you want, and because it's a desktop, you can still upgrade the components, add more storage, RAM, etc. That is an acquired taste as a solution not everyone would be interested in. But I think if you're a student in particular in college, or if you're a business person on the go, that can be awesome for you. So I want to begin by talking about things that are a bit dishonest. The first thing, as I mentioned, is gaming. I would not recommend this for anything other than like visually appealing games because the refresh rate is not high. However, that's more subjective. What's less subjective is the bit rate. So everywhere I could find, they basically suggest that this is a 10-bit panel, meaning that it has 10-bit color. So I'm going to, you're look right now on the screen, you can see me sort of showing you the settings on my Lenovo while the monitor is basically in the menu, and I'm looking at the different display settings. So my Lenovo screen is actually for real to a 10-bit panel, and you'll see that in the video. And the monitor in standard mode is an 8-bit panel. However, if you go and you change it to 10-bit, or rather if you hit HDR in the Windows 11 settings, it is not actually 10-bit. And it doesn't even try to lie to you in the settings. It says 8-bit with dithering. So 8-bit with dithering is basically a type of technology that some monitors employ to give the illusion of 10-bit color. And the way that they do this is by basically creating false transitional pixels that have a color that looks similar to the color next to it to give you the illusion that you're seeing a very smooth gradient of color. When in actuality, it's a trick of the eye. It's not actually legitimate. So that is a little irritating because that's a bit dishonest. So if you buy this specific monitor, I'm not speaking for all Newsoul products, but for this specific monitor, it is not actually 10-bit, and therefore is not accurate enough for high-end photo or video editing. As far as the settings go, there are a lot to consider. So the monitor comes in a sort of standard mode. And basically what you can do is you can go in and change the monitor either through the Windows 11 display controls or to a finer extent through the monitor controls. So if you go in through the monitor controls, you can change obvious things like brightness, contrast. You can change the overall color temperature from a warmer color temperature to a darker, to a cooler color temperature. As for the bit depth, as I said, it's 8-bit plus dithering. I want to note what bit depth actually is. Bit depth just refers to the number of colors it can display. It does not refer to brightness. It does not refer to pixels or the number of pixels. It just refers to the accuracy, or you could say quantity of color information available. That's it. So 10-bit means that there are basically a billion theoretical colors that the monitor can output or display when calibrated properly. 8-bit means there are roughly 16 million colors that the monitor can output, so be aware of that. And in the menus for the monitor itself, which there's 3 buttons on the side, the middle button is basically like the selection button, and then the 2 buttons on top basically allow you to switch to different settings. If you hold the middle button down for a few seconds, it'll take you out of that submenu to the overall menu where you can choose a new option. So be aware of how the menu works. So one of the best features the monitor has is in the first menu under where it says brightness. There's a menu option called DCR. If you turn that on, it automatically cranks the brightness of the display to the maximum, and it just gives a really punchy, visually pleasing look that I enjoy. That will turn off the auto settings of brightness, black level, contrast, but I find that it looks really, really nice. It almost looks like going to Best Buy and seeing one of the TVs. It just has a really nice look to it. So that's a menu option I turn on automatically every single time. You can change the aspect ratio of the monitor, especially if it doesn't match your laptop. Mine happens to match my laptop, but yours may not. As I said, you can change the color temperature, and you can change a few other things. So this monitor supports FreeSync, which is a nice feature for gaming. However, I didn't do any gaming tests on this monitor as I found it to be largely unnecessary. And you can change the signal source, which is crucial. So if you have the monitor plugged into your Type-C port on your laptop or desktop and you're wondering why nothing is showing up, go to the final menu item under Miscellaneous and click Signal Source and change it to the Type-C connection you're actually connected to. And of course, there's a volume control because there are small built-in speakers on the monitor. If you hate the speakers and you want to use your laptop instead, you can go to the audio source on your main desktop screen and change it back to your laptop, which is something that I had to do. Not that the speakers are horrendous, but they're not exceptional. And the last thing I want to say is HDR. So the laptop has a couple of different HDR modes built into it, and they're pretty good, but they're pretty basic. Now, let's cover HDR a little bit more in depth from Windows 11 standpoint. So, when you go into Windows 11 and you try to turn on HDR for this monitor, it will work, but it will probably, most likely, on your screen look like garbage. And the reason is because it's a bit complicated, but basically this kind of ties into the way that digital cameras work, digital cinema cameras. So in digital camera land, there's something called log, which is short for logarithm. And this is an extremely common type of recording style for a bunch of different cameras, including the camera I used to film this video. It allows you to, well, it's a little bit different on my camera because it's compressed footage, but if it's uncompressed, log gives you even more control. And basically, this takes the image and it squeezes as much data, as much image data into the size of file, the size of bitrate, for instance, that is available. And this ends up creating a very flat image. Flat meaning that there's little to no contrast and little to no color punch. It looks very flat. It looks really desaturated, right? And so that's what happens when you switch on HDR using a Windows 11 PC. Now, here's what's interesting. If you switch on HDR for your, let's say you have a laptop like mine, a Lenovo laptop, if you switch on HDR, it will not look like that. It will not look flat. The reason is the same as it is with digital cameras, because the Lenovo PC and many others are adding a color profile. So this color profile is built in from the factory in most cases, and what it does is it takes all that HDR data and it sort of uncompresses it, and it applies what in the film is called a LUT, a lookup table, which basically just takes the data, and then it says, okay, what screen do they have? Okay, it's 500 nits brightness, it's this resolution, this is how many pixels, and it tries to give you a nice, pleasing, high-quality look to your screen. Just like you would with a camera. You do the same thing with like raw video footage that you film on a big movie. But here's the issue. On the Newsoul monitor, that option is grayed out. You literally cannot click anything. So in order to calibrate this display, you will need a calibration tool, an external one that, as far as I can tell, is not built into the monitor's software in any way, shape, or form. You might think, well, if you just turn on HDR and then you go to the monitor and try to change it, it'll work. Well, in my testing, it did not. Maybe you can figure it out. But I tried to turn on HDR both in my laptop through Windows 11 and on the monitor, and I got flashing lights and like the signal kept cutting in and out. It was super messed up. And I think that's because both of those HDR profiles were fighting with each other. I think that's probably what happened. Both signals were fighting for dominance and neither one quite won, so to speak. So just be aware of that. If you want HDR, don't misunderstand, you can get it. However, honestly, I would recommend just using the punchy display pre-built calibration inside the monitor itself and not necessarily through Windows 11, unless you have a way to add a color profile and effectively calibrate the screen, in which case you can go for it. The next thing to note is that you can use this monitor like they advertise with a phone or a tablet. So I tested it with a Sony Xperia Android smartphone, as you can see in these videos, and it was really cool. It was really cool to see this teeny tiny little game showing up on this massive or quasi-massive 15 or 16-inch display. It was cool to have this little game that I like to play that looks kind of like Candy Crush but is not on this big screen. It was a lot of fun. And what's interesting is because this is a monitor just like any other HDMI monitor, you can actually use it to output your smartphone's camera. So you can use this as an external display. So if you're a YouTuber or if you're a low budget filmmaker, could be extremely advantageous to you. Bring this with you to a corporate video shoot. Even if you're filming the actual video shoot on your iPhone or Samsung phone or whatever Android smartphone, for the most part, you can use this monitor with that phone with a USB-C cable. You will need to power the monitor though. So be aware of that. But you can use it with a USB-C cable to view a live preview of your video off of your smartphone, which is extremely cool. So it is pretty fun what you can do with this display. Obviously, Windows 11 includes modes for duplicating the display. So you can duplicate what's on your laptop or desktop, or you can have it be an extended display where you basically have two sort of individual displays that are apart from each other, which is an awesome way to use the device. The next thing I want to talk about is pricing. So it is not available on Amazon anymore, so far as I can tell. That doesn't mean there aren't Newsoul products, it's just not this specific one. However, what's interesting is that Walmart is currently selling this exact display for $109, basically $110. When I purchased it, as you can see in the billing statement, I had to pay effectively $159 before tax because there was a $20 promotion. But even with that $20 promotion, I still paid more than it costs on Walmart right now. That could be because the item is officially discontinued. I can't say for certain, but what I can tell you is if you're looking to buy a monitor like this, go to whatever your favorite website is. So if that's Amazon or if it's B&H or whatever website you like to buy tech, and see what you like, find the product you like, and then before you hit add to cart, look at other websites for the same product and see if there's a better promotion. See if you can get it for a better price, because I could have saved like $50 if I had just gotten it somewhere else. All right, thank you for listening to this video. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.